me call the meeting to order. First item on our agenda this morning is the University President's Report. President Wolf.
Good morning.
Morning.
Today I have the good fortune to update the board and everybody else on the progress that the University of Missouri system and our grade 4 campuses have made since the last Board of Curator meeting. The conversation is going to be a little bit different today. I'm going to talk about going from good to great. I think we've all, as we've come into our leadership positions, inherited good. We're a good institution, but we have aspirations to be great. And there are three items that are going to influence moving from good to great. It's leadership, it's innovation, and it's resources. And I'm going to touch on each of these three during this brief conversation. From a leadership standpoint, which is the first element in moving from good to great, we've got great leaders already in place. You heard from Tom George. It's remarkable when you think about it, the challenges that happen just 4 miles away at Ferguson. It's remarkable to think about how Chancellor George has kept peace on the UMSL campus, promoted conversation, discourse being part of that conversation, and helped with the healing that we're now in that phase and investing appropriately in helping move beyond the challenges. And I commend Tom George and the leaders on his team and the great support that they've provided to North County. In addition to Tom George, we also have great leadership on the western part of the state. Chancellor Leo Morton was named Kansas Citian of the Year, which is from the Kansas City Chamber of Commerce. It is the highest recognition in Kansas City, and the recognition Leo was described as being the epitome of civic and community leadership, and it was obviously fantastic recognition and well-deserved. Chancellor Schrader was the first Chancellor President invited to be the keynote speaker on Project Lead the Way, which is a fabulous initiative that's intended to educate the science and STEM-related teachers in our K-12 system and motivate them to attract more students into this very important field so that they can matriculate up to our 4 campuses and we can graduate enough STEM-related career-minded people to serve the business interests of the state. So congratulations to Cheryl for this wonderful opportunity to represent the needs not only for S&T but the needs of our state. Recently, about a month ago, Chancellor Lofton is sitting here next to Jim Carrington. Jim is the leader of the Danforth Plant Life Science Center. Danforth Plant Life Science Center has been known globally as one of the great places where plant science research takes place. What's interesting about this announcement is we have been working, Bowen has been working with Jim for quite some time, and we are jointly funding 4 research positions where we're attracting 4 of the best researchers on a global basis to live on the MU campus or at the Danforth Plant Life Science Center. And this is just another step towards recognition, global recognition, that the majority of the plant life science researchers in the world are in Missouri, in the St. Louis and Columbia area. And so this is a fantastic collaborative initiative that we're quite proud of, and it's going to pay dividends for many, many years to come. Also, we've had remarkable leadership in our health system. I've got a picture of Mitch Waz and should have a picture of Hal here as well, but Mitch is the CEO and the COO of the hospital. Just recently, we were recognized as one of the top 10 hospitals in the United States, and we are in great company with Mayo and Cleveland Clinic as examples. Just to show you the progression of what's happened at our hospital is 2 years ago, we were 56th in this ranking. Last year, we were 27th. This year, we've moved up to 9th. We're second in the categories of efficiency and safety, and much credit goes to Mitch and his leadership team. Also, as a collective leadership team, we've come together on a very important project, which is the response to what unfortunately occurred in the January timeframe with the sexual assault of Sasha Menyukuri. The Title IX work that we've done has been remarkable. In a very short period of time, we've educated over 150 people. We've rolled out online mandatory reporting training that all employees will take by the first quarter of this year. Also, we have aggregated all the resources into one place. So this is the Title IX University of Missouri System website. On it, you can't see probably from the back, but on it are hot links to the Title IX website for each of the 4 campuses. Also contained in there, we have frequently asked questions as well as the roadmap for the additional investment in education and training that we're doing for all the 4 campuses. We've solved the update to our policy manual, our collected rules and regulations for students. We will be bringing to the board that the new collected rules and regulations for staff and faculty. So a lot of great leadership was shown in getting to this particular point in time. You've heard from some of the system general officers. Let me remark just a little bit about the leadership that we've shown recently, and you'll continue to see more of in the future, starting with Gary Allen. Gary's been on point for the entire system in the consolidation of our enterprise resource planning, our ERP system, which is how we interface with students as well as our finance and HR system. Also, he's been on point for the data center consolidation that will allow us to share resources and have technology in a more secure, scalable way. And there's lots of positives that come out of that. You heard from Steve Knorr yesterday talking about some of the messaging that we've done with the Show Me Value Tour. The Academic Support Center, that is actually the ones that is providing the microphones and running the tapes for the videos that you saw yesterday. They put together the Show Me Value Tour video as well. Much thanks to them for supporting events like this. But also, what Steve didn't talk about, which really is the result of lots of years of effort, is last year we had by far the best year ever in terms of state funding year over year on a percentage basis. And that's the core appropriation increase. It's the funding for Laffery Hall, as well as the proposed funding for the additional maintenance and repair, which will total $90+ million. So it was a fabulous year in terms of getting additional resources from the state, thanks to Steve and the leadership. Betsy talked about the significant improvement that we've made, not only in identifying our 8,000 staff in terms of what they do and where they are in terms of competitive compensation, but also putting in place a compensation system where merit increases will be passed out based on results and performance, which is the way it should be. Also, the rollout of the new benefit system was remarkable, and again, that helps our employees make better decisions relative to what's the appropriate medical plan for them. Hank, you heard a lot from yesterday relative to the changes in research and economic development and shifting our resources to the areas that provide us the best return on that investment, which is exciting. The newest member, Brian Burnett, comes in, joins the team, and is asking a lot of questions, provocative questions based on his experience in higher education, provocative questions as to, are we putting resources in the right place? He's also leading an effort that kicks off on Monday of next week, where we're going to all 4 campuses, spending about 6 hours on each of the campuses, diving deep in terms of where money comes in and where money goes out. And so we can now have the visualization with a Hyperion tool that we implemented, the visualization of what's happening at unit by unit and comparing those units across your campus. Also starting to look at trend patterns and try to understand, are we deploying resources in the right way? The purpose of this is through understanding your financial model, you can then make the necessary changes to support your strategic plan. And that's it's going to be a very exciting conversation and one that we'll bring back to the Board of Curators in the February meeting, the results of that. So I talked about leadership. The second element towards moving from good to great is on innovation. Back in '76, when I was in college, one of the classes that wasn't in my major, psychology, I still use to this day, and I've used throughout my career, which is Maslow's hierarchy. You see on the screen in front of you. Some of you are smiling because most of us have been through that. But the interesting thing is, as Maslow appropriately described back in the 30s, the different stages of human growth, and that different stages of human growth and what motivates activities by a human can be applied to systems or businesses as well. So I'm going to take this Maslow's hierarchy and try to describe where we are right now and what we need to be doing in the future to become great, not just good. This is at the base stage of Maslow's hierarchy, and I haven't put in all the stages, is the fundamental need to have food and water and shelter. And then on the top is self-actualization. And that is described by Maslow as a human trying to become the most that one can be. That's where, when you're in the self-actualization stage, you can be more creative, you can be more innovative, you take responsibility, you tend to work harder. And if you think about where the University of Missouri system has come from and where it is today, let me try to map significant activities against Maslow's hierarchy with the purpose not to make you psychology majors, because I would fail at that, but the purpose to try to give you an appreciation of where we are and where we need to be. And again, this is in the spectrum of going from good to great. Back several years ago, when we had significant cuts from the state coming at us, and this is in Gary Forsey's term, what we had to do was balance the budget, put in accountability and transparency measures, because people were really questioning at the time the value of the University of Missouri system and the importance of the University of Missouri system. Back then, as I understand it, I wasn't here, a lot of the conversation was, we send money there and we don't know what happens to it. Or we send money there, or we send students there and they have bad experience or whatever. So the image and the concern suggested that we, as a state, divest from the University of Missouri system. So that would say would be in the food and water and shelter stage of Maslow's hierarchies. We've got to fundamentally change perception, fundamentally figure out a way to get enough resources to continue to keep the lights on and people paid. And in fact, back then, as I understand it, we had to lay off a lot of people just to survive. Well, we have moved from that food and water stage of Maslow's hierarchy to something, I would say, in the middle of the pyramid, which is with strategic planning. The purpose, the reason why we put that in place was we had to move from survive the day to think about the future and change our balance of the conversation and change the balance of the investments more towards our future. And to do that, you had to have some way of aligning everybody in your organization towards a common intent. And that's what the strategy put forth was. We had to be declarative in terms of who we were going to serve, and that was called the scope. We had to make some decisions about what constituencies were most important to us. We also had to declare why us. What was the advantage of us over another alternative that they could choose in the higher education marketplace? That was the advantage. And then the final element of the strategic plan was, how do we know that we've achieved the success that we've got defined in the strategic plan? And that was called the objective. So each of the strategic plans had those common themes of scope, advantage, and objective in those. What that then did was start to crystallize what the priorities are of each of the campuses, and that was codified in terms of the strategic plan. So now we have clarity in what we're going to look like in 2018. We have clarity in terms of our priorities, and we have clarity that we can give out to all our constituents, be it we're recruiting new students or be it to our employees, as to what they can expect from us on a go-forward basis. But we're still not in the self-actualization stage, which is up top, which is innovation. And that's what we really are challenging ourselves, is to how to move to the next stage of Maslow's hierarchy. Let me give you an example of a company that is known for its innovation, which is Apple. For those of you that have been following Apple, the foundation of Apple in the old days was on creative technology and how it applies to everyday life. They lost their way in the 90s. Steve Jobs lost his job as the leader of Apple, and when he lost his job and he moved away from this being the innovator in the technology industry to somebody that was maybe a copier or somebody that produced product at a lower cost, they lost their way and almost went bankrupt. Steve came back, put back in place what made them successful, which was think different. Let me just describe to you the culture of Apple, and obviously you've seen the success when Steve came back to Apple. Their culture has codified a habit that is good for any company to have. Stop, step back from your product, and take a closer look. Apple asks this question constantly. Without worrying about how much work you've already put into it, is it really as good as it could be? And that's what we really need to do when you think about it. We need to step back and ask ourselves, is it really as good as it could be? Now, we have the ability to innovate. Let me give you an example of this. Obviously, with the Title IX mandate that took place this year, innovation started to come out of the woodwork. We showed you in the last Board of Curator meeting the MU Enough is Enough video. Also, UMSL did a similar video that was described as It's on Us. S&T had the Step Up campaign. Down in the bottom right, the UMKC had the National Clothesline Project and Denim Day. A lot of these initiatives and innovation came from students, which is really, really exciting. So when back is pressed against the wall through a mandate or through some sort of crisis, we do step up. The challenge with that is we can't have mandates all the time to force innovation. It has to be at lower levels in the culture, just like it is with Apple, where every employee is challenged with, is it the best that it could be? So when you think about our future, and you look at this, which I've shown to you before, as this is our strategy document, the very complex graphic on the right shows in the inner circle, that's the strategy statement, and the themes are the circles that surround the strategy statement. And on the outside of that circle, that's where innovation occurs. These are actions, and these actions get consolidated into levers. This strategy document and this strategy methodology is not so rigid in that it inhibits innovation. It is a strategy document that informs innovation, and the creativity needs to occur in the actions and the levers, which is the challenge that we have ahead of us. And so the last element that I wanted to describe as important to our success relative to moving from good to great is that of resources. You might have the interest and aspiration to be creative and to be innovative, but if you don't have the resources, and the resources come in the form of people, processes, dollars, infrastructure, technology, there's lots of different types of resources necessary for innovation. But if you don't have the resources, your great idea probably won't get any traction, and you probably won't have any ability to implement it. We have the resources at the University of Missouri system. We're not rich with resources. Most of the resources that we need to innovate have to come from existing investments. So we're going to have to be either more efficient at what we're doing and free up those dollars through efficiencies, or we're going to have to stop doing things and take the dollars that were invested in one area and put them in a new area. What Brian Burnett showed you yesterday is we are great at being efficient. Now we have to think about how we can be great at being effective as well. The resources that we have available to us, we have applied towards innovative ideas, and that was Title IX. Strategic funding process is really balanced and weighted towards innovative ideas. We had a retreat this summer where we looked at intercampus collaboration. 2 projects came out of that are funded with the dollars that come from the state. So we will fund these innovative ideas, and we'll continue to fund those in the future. So if we take advantage of the leadership capabilities that we've got, and we're flush with leadership capabilities, if we challenge ourselves to take more risk, free up the dollars to apply towards innovative initiatives, and make sure that the resources are balanced in a way that we fund as much risk and initiatives, then we will accelerate the speed of moving from good to great. We need to be discussed in the same light as the great public and private institutions in the United States, and we have the capability to do it. We just have to accelerate the speed in which we move towards the objectives that are defined in the strategic plan. So for the campuses that have goals, quantitative goals of 3,600 graduates, 38,000 students, 20,000 students, $65,000 average salary. These are the goals that are out there on our campuses. Instead of doing it in 2018, we've got to figure out how we can do it in 2015 or 16 or 17. Achieve that goal, move on to the next goal. That's what it is. It's about the pace of speed that we pick up, but we are not going to be able to do that if we don't focus more of our time and attention and resources on being more innovative and creative and living in that self-actualization stage of Maslow's hierarchy. I believe if we do this, we can set the pace for the state of Missouri. I think that there's a distinct possibility, and it certainly is a future that I would like to see in the state of Missouri, where the state of Missouri prioritizes education, prioritizes it in the conversation, prioritizes education. I'm talking about preschool all the way through higher higher education. And not only talks about it in words, but backs it up financially with the amount of dollars that are available and are invested in education. I also believe the vision of Missouri is we can make a promise to every family and to every student in the state of Missouri that if you achieve a 3.0 grade point, you can go on to college. We have scholarship in the state that you can afford to go on to any college, and the public college of your choice is available to you. I believe there's a future for the state of Missouri that if you have a 3.7, you can get a full ride to any of the institutions in the state of Missouri. The funding's available. We can come up with that. And making a promise to every family and every student in the state of Missouri, not only we support it in Jeff City and we talk about it as the importance of education, but it comes down to the family, it comes down to the individual. I believe that future is a reality for the state of Missouri. We'd like to drive that conversation. That conversation will come from the University of Missouri standing up and being recognized, visible as the great institution in the United States. So happy to be able to brag about the University of Missouri system, and just want you to know that good is not good enough for us. We aspire to be great, and we will be great. And thank you for your time.
Thanks, Tim, for those very inspiring words. Moving on, next item on our agenda is our consent agenda. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Cindy?
Curator Bradley,
Yes.
Curator Cupps,
Yes.
Curator Downing, Curator Good,
Aye.
Curator Henriksen,
Yes.
Curator Phillips,
Yes.
Curator Steelman,
Yes.
all votes in favor.
Thanks, Cindy. Next item on our agenda is the board chair report. As you are aware, this is my last board chair report. I probably want to applaud for that. And it's my final board meeting. So I'd like to review with you briefly today my year as board chair, and also the 6 years that Wayne and David and I have been able and privileged to be on the board. And for those of you who were at the dinner last night, rest assured I'm not going to try to sing any part of this report today. As you know, my theme this year has been as board chair has been to focus on alternative sources of revenue. I picked that theme back in January because of the recognition that the future ability of our state government to fund all of our needs was at best uncertain. Since that time, developments in Jefferson City have cast even greater doubt on the ability of our state to fund the needs that we think are our priorities. Thus, I believe then, and believe even more strongly now, that we need to focus on alternative sources of revenue. I think we need to develop, as I said back in January, a new business model that works under any reasonably foreseeable scenario. Well, I'm happy to report that we are making progress on doing just that. I was delighted to learn back in January at our retreat of the amazing things that are going on each of our campuses in the fundraising side. And here in that retreat also of numerous ideas on how that can even be taken to a higher level. And building on the momentum of the retreat, later in the year, 2 of our campuses, UMSL and Mizzou, announced record fundraising years. Fundraising on all 4 of our campuses collectively is at an all-time high of $263.4 million. We are making good progress on fundraising, but I know all involved believe we can do better. For example, consider this. At the beginning of this year, on the MU campus, only 16% of our alumni donate. Of those who do, which is about 33,000, the average gift is $688. By contrast, the average gift from a University of Illinois donor is $1,135. And a KU donor, the average gift is $1,106. Almost a $450 difference per donor. If we could simply raise the average of our donors to their donors, it would add an additional $14 million to the Mizzou bottom line to fund the strategic priorities on that campus. And if we could significantly increase the percentage of our donors that give, it would increase that exponentially. And that's just one example from one of our campuses. I'm sure there are similar examples from our other campuses we could point to. We've also made progress on corporate philanthropy, but much more can be accomplished there as well. Virtually every business of this state of any size benefits from the educated workforce that our campuses provide. Many also benefit from the research they conduct. Missouri businesses should all support the University of Missouri, regardless of whether their owners graduated from one of our campuses or not. I believe our 50-50 match program is one viable way for Missouri businesses and individuals to make a huge difference on our campuses. That's already begun, but we can do more there. But this 50-50 match idea is far from a new concept. In the book that I'm going to give to Don Cups in just a minute, The History of the University of Missouri, published back in 1939, and this has been handed down from board chair to board chair for about the last 30 or 40 years, Don, so you'll have an opportunity to read this. There's a description in this book about a 50-50 match program that I think would be of much interest to several of our board members. It involves the Mizzou Law School. Let me quote. By 1925, the law building had become inadequate, although substantial and in good condition. The library had increased to over 25,000 volumes, and in spite of readjustments which had been made and stock space added, no room was left for expansion. Consequently, the generous offer of Mr. and Mrs. Frank R. Tate of St. Louis to provide 1/2 of the funds necessary to erect a new law building, contingent upon the appropriation of the balance by the legislature, was very timely. The Curators accepted the offer of the building, and construction was begun in 1925. So the precedent for a 50-50 match program goes back at least 90 years. In summary, I respectfully submit to my colleagues that continued and creative focus on further developing our development efforts is essential. We're also making excellent strides in our e-learning endeavors. In fact, we've been recognized as one of the leaders in the country in this area. But I believe we've just scratched the surface. E-learning provides vast potential to provide even better educational experiences to our on-campus students, and also to serve an entire population of students that otherwise would not be able to take college courses. Better education for our students better prepares them for the jobs of the future, but it also provides us a tremendous opportunity to tap into a potentially large alternative source of revenue through our increased ability to serve students in areas and in ways we never could before. Another area we're making progress in, but more slowly, is tapping into revenues from new ideas and inventions we create. Executive Vice President Hank Foley in April, and again yesterday, have made some wonderful presentations on this, and I know he and our chancellors are very focused on this. Just a few weeks ago, I attended a corporate roundtable breakfast in St. Louis, at which Chancellor Lofton gave a rousing presentation on this to the business leaders in St. Louis. He spoke of the opportunity for public-private partnerships in this area as a way to develop significant additional revenues for the university, and the business leaders who attended were all ears. They're ready to go. One area I know that we as curators believe present a tremendous opportunity for growth in this area is the nuclear reactor on the Columbia campus. We were all extraordinarily impressed by what we saw on our tour there, and strongly encourage President Wolf and Chancellor Lofton to continue to focus on ways to productively utilize that unique resource. Finally, another area that we've discussed repeatedly is increasing our grants and contracts. I know this is tough sledding today, given the reduction in funds available from the federal government, but I'm convinced that we have on board some of the best people in the country to maximize our opportunities in this area, including Executive Vice President Foley. Now, my decision to focus on alternative sources of revenue this year does not suggest that we have no more work to do on the cost side of the equation. We do, and President Wolf's strategic planning process requires continual focus on eliminating areas of duplication and waste and finding new efficiencies. I know both he and our chancellors are focused like a laser on this, as you saw in our Efficiencies Report yesterday. There will be continued opportunities for efficiency and savings, but we also have to focus on the revenue side. Now, it's the first time I've done this. Let's see if I can do that. Here's why I think we have to focus on the revenue side. It would be imprudent, given our demographics, to rely on future increasing enrollment gains to drive up net tuition which is the blue line. As we've experienced during the entire time period this chart was in existence. We've had enrollment gains, many others have had declines, and the demographics are changing. So I don't think we can count on the blue line continuing to go up as it has in the past. And it's unrealistic, in my view, to count on the state, which has continued, with its continued focus on tax cuts, to believe that the state appropriation line is going to go much higher. And if you see, the state appropriation, the decline in state appropriations is not just something that happened during the Great Recession, it's been a longer-term trend. So if we want to be prudent in our fiscal management, and I think we should be, we have to hope for the best, but plan for the worst. Thus, I believe we absolutely have to focus on this other revenue line, which I've called alternative revenue, and drive that line up to make sure that we have the resources that we need to fund our strategic priorities in years to come. So that's why I focused on alternative sources of revenue this year, and I hope future boards continue to do the same. And I'm confident with our dedicated leadership, alums and business leaders, we can and will do this. Failure is simply not an option. Now, let me turn to a brief review of the 6 years that Wayne, David, and I have had the privilege of serving on this historical board. We arrived in 2009, when our nation was still reeling from the Great Recession, and our board, frankly, was still reeling from some personal issues between board members. While there's not much that we could do about the Great Recession, we could and we did strive to improve board member relations. I believe all board members at the time recognized that we needed to do this. And those relationships did improve significantly over the coming years. Since then and through today, I would characterize board member relations as excellent. I value tremendously the very respectful and collegial relationship that we all have, and I believe that maintaining it is essential to board productivity. We've had significant financial challenges for most of the time that we've been on the board. They were caused primarily by the Great Recession I just mentioned and its impact on state revenues. Here's a chart that shows that a little bit. State revenues in the middle of the Great Recession declined and have not yet gotten back to where they would have been but for that. This chart shows it even more graphically as general revenue as a percent of income in Missouri declined dramatically and is nowhere near where it was before. I became a member of the Finance Committee in 2010 and served as its chair in 2011, 12, and 13. Because of the decline in state revenues, we saw state appropriations to the university drop from $498 million in 2010 to $438 million in 2011 to $398 million in 2012. That's a decline of $100 million, or 20%, in just 3 years. And that was at a time when our student enrollment was consistently growing each year. The net result of both of these trends is a chart you saw yesterday. The state appropriations per student declined dramatically because of those two factors. But again, notice the decline again is a longer-term trend and not just something that happened during the Great Recession. At the same time, we remained committed to keeping our tuition affordable. We held the line on tuition increases each of those years as state appropriations declined. Our tuition increases for undergraduate resident Missouri's students averaged only 2.2% per year, which is among the lowest of any of our peers in the country and less than half of the average tuition of the states surrounding Missouri. For 2015, earlier this year, we voted to freeze tuition, again, recognition of our commitment to access and affordability. For those of you not on the board during those painful years, you might wonder, how did we get by with declining state appropriations and no significant tuition increases? Virtually all other universities in the country, and certainly all of our peers, raised tuition substantially during this period of declining state appropriations. We didn't. How did we avoid that? I think there are at least two major explanations. They've been touched on earlier. Through the dedicated leadership of Gary Forsey and later Tim Wolf, working in conjunction with our chancellors on each of our campuses, we focused on ways to cut costs and become more efficient. And I'm proud to report that as a result of these focused efforts, We are far more efficient today and cost-effective than we were in 2009 when Wayne, David, and I joined this board. The Efficiencies Report we saw yesterday is a graphic illustration of just that. One measure of that you saw yesterday is operating expenses per degree awarded, but there are many others. Another explanation of how we got through those difficult years is by our ever-increasing enrollment. Obviously, the enrollment growth helped our net tuition dollars, and we did so without increasing faculty and staff, which again shows more efficiency, but also can cause some long-term problems if our student-faculty ratios get out of whack. We were also able to attract a greater percentage of our students from out of state and from foreign countries. They saw and still see the University of Missouri as a great value with relatively low tuition and high-quality education. And we were able to do this without turning away a single qualified Missouri resident, something I hope we never do. Our enrollment increased from 69,000 students in 2009 when we joined the board to 77,000 students this year. And the percentage of our students from out of state who pay that higher tuition increased from 16% in 2009 to 21% today, a fairly dramatic increase. As a result, net tuition and fees went from $405 million in 2009 all the way to $560 million in 2014, an increase of 38%. That's how we survived during those hard years. Dedication to cost cutting, efficiencies, and the beneficiary of increased net tuition because of increased enrollment. So the moral of the story is that every challenge, in this case, declining state appropriations, presents an opportunity for change. We took the opportunity, embraced that, and are better for it. We certainly had and continue to have challenges we've not yet overcome. One of our cost savings, if you want to call it that, was our failure, frankly, to properly maintain our buildings. Our maintenance and repair deficit has consistently grown over the last 5 years from $1.26 billion in 2010 to $1.42 billion in 2014. I know we're making strides in that area, as we heard yesterday, but obviously there's a lot more we have to do in that. Another way we've saved money that I'm not proud of is through lack of increases to faculty salaries. Our faculty salaries are still very low compared to our peers. For example, in 2009, Mizzou was 33rd out of 34 among AAU public institutions. In 2014, we've moved all the way up to 32nd out of 34. We must find a better way to find resources for faculty salaries. Another area I strongly believe we can continue to improve is our stewardship of our endowment and retirement funds. We've made great strides in the last couple of years in reducing fees and costs and in moving to low-cost index funds in the global equity portion of our portfolio. But in my view, and you're not going to be surprised by hearing this, we're not where we need to be yet. I respectfully urge my fellow curators to continue to focus on reducing fees and costs and improving the performance of the multi-billion-dollar portfolio that we are stewards of. Another area of concern is the dramatic increase in debt during the last 6 years. We made the decision that because of the historically low interest rate environment, that this was a period of time when it made sense to invest in new buildings and facilities on our campuses. And invest we did. During the last 6 years, we've authorized 25 major construction projects, including 18 new buildings, 4 major additions to buildings, 2 parking structures, and an expansion to the football stadium on the MU campus. Those authorizations have increased our long-term debt from $868 million in 2009 to $1.6 billion in 2014, an increase of over 84%. For the most part, I believe these investments in our infrastructure was needed, particularly given the dramatic increase in our enrollment during this time period. But now we are getting to the point that any further increase in our debt could impact our excellent credit rating. I respectfully urge my colleagues to think long and hard about doing anything that would jeopardize our credit rating. I believe doing so could send the wrong signal to multiple important audiences. Instead, let's encourage those in Jefferson City to do what I believe we all support: authorize a long overdue bond issue to cover any critical building needs. Speaking of our friends in Jefferson City, I urged in June that we initiate a dialogue about what our priorities as a state should be, not just the next year or the year after, but over the long term, and an appropriate tax policy to fund those priorities. We are currently 46th out of 50th in states in total tax revenue per capita, and 45th in total state tax revenue as a percentage of personal income. And large income tax cuts are slated to take effect in 2017, which likely will drive us even lower. And I understand additional tax cuts are being proposed for this coming legislative session. Is it truly in the state's interest to move even closer to the bottom by enacting additional tax cuts? Is it in the university's interest that that happen? We know from experience that when the state's revenues decline, higher education revenues decline proportionally more. If we believe that further reduction in state revenue is not in the university's interest, I believe that it's incumbent upon those of us who passionately care about the university to initiate a dialogue, and before any additional tax cuts are passed. The curators of the University of Missouri collectively have tremendous persuasive force and a great soapbox to make a difference in our state. Our university literally reaches into the fabric of every county in this state. In my opinion, our board should not simply accept as a fait accompli the prevailing political winds of the day. It should create those winds by leading and framing the discourse, as prior boards of curators have done for the last 175 years. I genuinely believe that the university's future depends on us doing that. Now, let me get off my soapbox and offer some concluding observations about this extraordinary entity that we call the University of Missouri. The Board of Curators of the University of Missouri met and organized for the first time on October 10, 1839, 175 years ago. They had $20,000 in the treasury and subscriptions for about $60,000 more. They also had land valued at about $35,000. From that inauspicious start, subsequent boards of curators and the university leadership they hired built this university literally from the ground up into an organization that today has total net assets of over $4.1 billion and educates more than 77,000 students. Notwithstanding these achievements over the past 175 years, I truly believe the university's best days are ahead of us. Why do I say that? First, look at our leaders. One of the most important things the Board of Curators does is hire a president. Back in 2011, the board and our chair at that time, Warren Erdman, put an extraordinary amount of time and meetings into searching for and recruiting candidates for the office of president. Groups of us met with, over various periods of time, over 40 different candidates. But in the end, I have no doubt we made the right call. Tim Wolf is a great leader for the University of Missouri and will continue to be for many years to come. And Tim himself has hired great people in the 2 short years or so he's been here. Cheryl Schrader, Bowen Lofton, Hank Foley, Brian Burnett, to name just some of the rock stars, as Tim calls them. Each of them has already demonstrated that they belong in that revered category. Chancellors Morton and George were hired before Tim's in my tenure, but we all know what extraordinary things they are doing on their urban campuses. And we all know what extraordinary things all of the chancellors plan to do in the next 5 years because it's on their strategic plans. And speaking of our leadership, what can you say about our esteemed general counsel and professional interim, Steve Owens? Steve does an extraordinary job keeping us in line and keeping us up to date in all the important legal developments that affect the university. He works with and has developed an excellent legal team in the general counsel's office. Steve's appointment as interim president and as interim chancellor during our tenure was universally well received because of the high esteem in which Steve is held across all of our campuses. Steve, I know those of us on the board all sleep better at night because you are our general counsel. Thank you for your service in all the capacities you've served us. With leaders like these, we have every reason to be optimistic about the future of our university, but that's certainly not the only reason. Look at our students. The quality of our students, based on standardized test scores and grades, is at an all-time high. 30% of our freshmen this fall were in the top 10% of their high school class, and 51% were in the top 20%, which is a record. On the ACT, 34% of our freshmen scored 28 or better, and 72% scored 24 or above. Again, an all-time record. And the quantity of our students has never been higher. The increase in both the quality and quantity of our students did not happen by accident. Increasing both at a time when many other universities are seeing declining enrollments takes hard work, day in and day out, by many people on each of our campuses, and that hard work is paying off. I truly believe that the morale of our students and pride in our university has never been higher. As someone who currently has 3 students enrolled in 2 of our campuses, I continually hear about the quality of our faculty and the sheer joy that comes from being a student on our campuses. Our faculty is another reason for optimism. Look at our faculty. Extraordinary people doing extraordinary things in extraordinary ways in the areas of teaching, research, and service. Over my 6 years on the board, we've had many presentations from faculty and their students, just like we did this morning, on each of our campuses about what they're doing in their classrooms and in their laboratories and in their communities. Those presentations have inspired all of us and helped bring home to me just why the university exists and the enormous difference it makes in the lives of Missouri citizens and many others across the world. If you need another reason to be optimistic about our financial resources, about our future, look at no further than our financial resources and stability. Notwithstanding our increase in debt, we are in very good financial shape right now. We are and have been for many years conservatively managed. We were reminded yesterday about what the rating agencies have said about us. Our financial management is admired on Wall Street and is envied by our peers. Finally, I'm very optimistic about what the future of the university when I look at this board. The framers of our Constitution got it right when they decided that the board should include members of every congressional district and divided roughly but evenly between Democrats and Republicans. They knew that a geographic and politically diverse board could collectively apply Missouri's show-me common sense and wisdom to the difficult issues the university faces and would face in a way that no homogeneous board could. As President Middlebush said in this book, as he's quoted as saying back in 1939, the people of Missouri wisely vested the government of the university in the hands of a bipartisan board of curators composed of public-spirited citizens who would discharge their duties with a high sense of public responsibility. I truly believe our board illustrates that. The very type of public-spirited citizens and a high sense of public responsibility that we each show in all of our meetings. We all have different strengths and weaknesses, different political views, different political philosophies on how a university should be run. But we've consistently come together in our thinking, sometimes after rigorous discussion and analysis. Together, we make better decisions than any of us could make alone. And that's particularly true when we are as well served as we have been by our board secretary, Cindy Harmon. Cindy clearly was one of our best hires during the 6 years we've been on the board. She does her job tirelessly, seamlessly, and professionally. She always has a smile on her face, as she does right now, and makes sure that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. Cindy, I know I speak for the entire board when I say that your professionalism and graciousness reflect well on the university and on the board that you so ably serve. Thank you for your service. You've been a joy to work with. We as a board have grappled with many difficult issues over the last 6 years. But one example I'd like to close with is when we were faced with the potential disintegration of the Big 12 Athletic Conference and the possibility that our flagship university would be on the outside looking in any conference realignment. While it was not an academic issue, it was an issue that was extremely important to tens of thousands of Missouri alums. I received more emails on that single issue during my 6 years on the board than all other issues combined. Each board member was pulled in different directions. Some alums were adamant that we had to remain in the Big 12 Conference and keep our rivalry with Kansas alive. This view was expressed primarily by a small but very vocal contingent from the Kansas City area. Others, including some in the St. Louis area, were equally adamant that we should hold out for an offer to join the Big 10 Conference, no matter how long that offer might take in arriving. Many were open to the idea of moving to the SEC, but some questioned whether we could compete in that conference. Others questioned whether it was an appropriate academic or cultural fit for us. Every board member was receiving emails, calls, and other communications virtually every day over a period of months. Some of those communications were passionate, some were even threatening. Our board came together in this time of crisis in a way I'll always remember. We gathered and analyzed all the data and information we could obtain. We spoke with numerous people on the campus and around the state. We had several meetings at which all possible options were thoroughly analyzed and considered. And I truly sensed that each curator at the time was motivated solely by what that curator determined, based upon all the available data and information we could obtain, was best for Mizzou and best for the University of Missouri system, and not necessarily what the curator's personal preference was or the personal preference of his acquaintances or friends or her acquaintances or friends. In the end, we made what I believed then and believe even more strongly now was the right decision. We unanimously decided to move to the SEC. Among the anticipated benefits of being a member of the SEC conference were visibility, stability, equality, collegiality, enlightened leadership, and, yes, additional revenues, each of which during the last 2 years has turned from anticipation into reality. From the beginning, the SEC welcomed us with open arms. It truly is an all-for-one, one-for-all conference. It has been many years since our leadership has felt as comfortable as they now feel being part of the SEC. Never has the Mizzou brand been more recognized and prominent. And for the first time in anybody's memory, maybe in the first time in history, Mizzou's athletic department now has the resources to send money to Mizzou's academic mission and not vice versa. We believe that only will increase as time goes by, and here's one reason why. Mizzou has received over $21 million in 2014 from the SEC. With the advent of the SEC network on August 14, 2014, this amount, we're confident, will grow rapidly. At launch, the SEC network had over 90 million households as subscribers, making it the most successful cable launch in history. As a comparator, the Big 10 network had 17 million subscribers at its launch in August of 2007. The process that led to our board deciding that Mizzou should join the SEC is a great example, I believe, of our board at its best. Public-spirited citizens with a high sense of public responsibility, working together diligently and harmoniously in a high-profile and stressful situation to make the best decision for the university based upon all the available data and information it could obtain. I was proud to be a part of it, and I'm proud to be a part of this board. I appreciate the opportunity you've given me this past year to serve as your chair, and the opportunity the governor has given me to serve on this board for the last 6 years. You will continue to be in my thoughts, and if ever I can do anything to help the new university, you know my number. I would like to close my remarks with the same words President Middlebush, again, in the book, used to end his remarks back in 1939 at the University Centennial. May the University of tomorrow, through building constantly upon the solid foundation of the past, continue to merit the confidence and the loyal support of the great state it serves. Best wishes to each of you during the holiday season and throughout the year. Thank you. Now I'd like to call Curator Bradley to the podium. I believe our board secretary, the gracious one, has a resolution I'd like her to read for everyone.
Whereas David R. Bradley has served the people of Missouri with distinction as a member of the University of Missouri Board of Curators since July 7, 2009. And whereas during his term of service, Curator Bradley served on the academic, student and external affairs, compensation and human resources, finance, governance, resources and planning, and executive committees, and is chairman of the Compensation and Human Resources, Executive, Finance, and Governance, Resources, and Planning Committees. And whereas Curator Bradley was vice chairman of the board during 2011 and was elected to serve as chairman of the board from January 1 to December 31, 2012. And whereas during his leadership as chairman of the board, Curator Bradley was an advocate of the service the university delivers statewide, and he promoted the implementation of electronic board meeting materials for increased efficiencies. And whereas during his service on the board, Curator Bradley was an active and enthusiastic spokesman for transparency and openness in public higher education, and understood the importance of giving faculty, students, staff, and the public the opportunity to share their opinions with the board and for the board to share information with them. And whereas Curator Bradley was a proponent for the responsible use of resources for new construction, maintenance and repair of buildings, and increased efficiencies throughout the system, and he served on the search committee for the 23rd president of the University of Missouri system. And whereas Curator Bradley has freely given his considerable journalistic and business expertise for the greater good of the university. Whereas, although his heart is in St. Joseph as the CEO of the News, Press, and Gazette Company, Curator Bradley served as a knowledgeable and enthusiastic emissary for the entire University of Missouri system. And whereas Curator Bradley is a person of high moral standards and a true professional, his contributions to the Board of Curators will have a lasting influence on the future of the University of Missouri system. And whereas Curator Bradley balanced a successful business enterprise with the business of the Board of Curators, he and his wife Suzanne were wonderful advocates of the university and great hosts for system events. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Curators, on behalf of the students, faculty, staff, and alumni of the University of Missouri system, and on behalf of the citizens of the state of Missouri, does hereby adopt this resolution in sincere appreciation of the dedicated and devoted leadership of David R. Bradley. And also that his future relations with the University of Missouri system be formally recognized by bestowing the title of Curator Emeritus upon David R. Bradley. And be it further resolved that the Secretary of the Board of Curators cause this resolution to be spread upon the minutes of this meeting, and that a duly inscribed copy thereof be furnished to David R. Bradley.
May I have a motion for approval of that resolution?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Cindy, would you call the roll?
Curator Bradley. Curator Cups.
Yes.
Curator Downing.
Yes.
Curator Good.
Aye.
Curator Henriksen.
Yes.
Curator Phillips.
Yes.
Curator Steelman.
Yes.
Curator Stewart is not here. All votes in favor.
Curator Bradley, I'd like to present you the resolution.
Thank you very much. All right, good.
And would you like to say a few words?
Very few, yeah. I never thought I would get along with so many Democrats and especially all these lawyers. So it's really been an eye-opening experience for me. But I just want to say I'm very proud. I'm very proud of all the efforts that have been made here on the efficiency. I'm very proud of the total rewards program Betsy's enacted. I'm especially proud of the 401k program that we have gotten started, and it's really helping a lot of our lower paid employees who are not here as long as some of our other employees. I'm very proud of our move to SEC. I think the strategic plan has been wonderful. We have streamlined our research and made it much easier to do more research and get those research dollars with Hank and what he's done there. And the salary administration has been a wonderful thing to enable us to reward our more productive faculty and to get faculty that aren't as productive more productive. And this board has been so cohesive. It's been really a great experience to be with our board. And Cindy, you've made this job so easy. You've been a wonderful person to work with, and I hope you won't forget me in the future when I ask for a ticket. And also, it's been great. Tim, you've done a wonderful job here. We've really enjoyed working with you and getting to know you and your better half, Molly. And we didn't know she went to KU till we appointed you. But that's all right. We know now. And but the best thing you've done is assemble a team. It's a wonderful team. And it's made your life much easier and made you able to do the things you need to do to make this university system go forward. So congratulations on the whole team. It's been a great experience. And I'll be around too. So I hope I can do more in the future. Thank you very much.
Now I'd like to call Curator Good to the podium. Cindy, I believe you have a resolution? Okay.
Whereas Wayne Good has served the people of Missouri with distinction as a member of the University of Missouri Board of Curators since July 9th, 2009. And whereas during his term of service, Curator Good served on the Academic, Student, and External Affairs, Audit, Compensation and Human Resources, Executive, Finance, and Governance Resources and Planning Committees. And whereas Curator Good also served as Chairman of the Audit Committee in 2011 and as Chairman of the Governance Resources and Planning Committee in 2014. And whereas during 2012, Curator Good was named Vice Chairman of the Board of Curators and was elected to be Chairman of the Board of Curators from January 1st, 2013 to December 31, 2013. And whereas, while serving as Chairman of the Board, Curator Good was an active proponent for increased research, intellectual property, and efficient processes across the University of Missouri system. And whereas, during his service on the board, Curator Good advocated for the proper maintenance of the collected rules and regulations and the appropriate delegation of authority. He also participated in the search for the 23rd president of the University of Missouri system. And whereas the citizens of Missouri have benefited not only from his service as a member of the Board of Curators, but also from his term in the Missouri legislature. In January 1963, Representative Wayne Good introduced House Bill 153, which would allow the Normandy School Board to sell the St. Louis branch property to the university, and saw the bill passed. Curator Good's experience in the legislature and vast historical knowledge of the university and state was invaluable during his term as a curator. And whereas the statue of Curator Good continues to oversee the University of Missouri St. Louis campus, and the students honor his legacy by placing T-shirts promoting various groups and causes on the statue. And whereas Curator Good has received many awards and recognitions, including the UMSL Chancellor's Medallion, presented both in 1999 and 2004, honoring those who have demonstrated exemplary leadership and dedication to the principles of higher education and have made distinguished contributions to the growth and development of the University of Missouri St. Louis, the St. Louis community, or the greater global community. And whereas Curator Good also received an honorary Doctor of Laws from UMSL in 2006 and the UM Presidential Citation Award for Outstanding Alumni Service. And whereas, although his heart is in St. Louis, Curator Good served as a knowledgeable and enthusiastic emissary for the entire University of Missouri system, always eager to learn more about the operations and effective governance of the university. And whereas Curator Good has sacrificed time with his wife Jane and family to attend to board business, they can now enjoy many years of travel, canoe trips, and great experiences with family and friends. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Curators, on behalf of the students, faculty, staff, and alumni of the University of Missouri system, and on behalf of the citizens of the state of Missouri, does hereby adopt this resolution in sincere appreciation of the dedicated and devoted leadership of Wayne Good, and also that his future relations with the University of Missouri system be formally recognized by bestowing the title of Curator Emeritus upon Wayne Good. And be it further resolved that the Secretary of the Board of Curators cause this resolution to be spread upon the minutes of this meeting, and that a duly inscribed copy thereof be furnished to Wayne Good.
May I have a motion for approval of that resolution?
I'd like to make that.
Second.
Cindy?
Curator Bradley?
Yes?
Curator Cups?
Yes.
Curator Downing?
Yes.
Curator Good?
Guess I better follow Curator Bradley's president's
Okay. Curator Henriksen?
Yes.
Curator Phillips?
Yes.
And Curator Steelman?
Yes.
Okay, all votes in favor.
Scribbled down a few notes this morning while I was sitting over there listening to various people talk. First, let me say to Don, our chair, I think you have set a new standard of board chair reports, particularly for an outgoing chair at the end of your time. That was really a great presentation. Very, very good. And I would echo what you said about working with a board that gets along. And that was emphasized yesterday evening. Former Chair Dave Wassinger was there last night. I hope most of you got a chance to meet him who didn't know him. His term overlapped 2 years with Don and Dave and I. And the years before that, the first 4 years of his term, were some of the more rocky times as Board of Curators go. And he was telling me last night, he said of the 8 or 9 members that were on the board from time to time, there were 3 that were absolutely opposed to the then sitting president, 3 who were very strong supporters of the then sitting president, and 3 who were in the middle. And things did not go very smoothly, to say the least. On thoughts on what the boards ought to do, boards of curators ought to do. You know, we have these things we need to do. We need to approve the budget, the audit, approve debt, tuition and fees, I guess, employee benefits, and those sort of things that are brought to us regularly. I think it's important that all members try to look for those things that aren't normally brought to us, those things that are in this very complicated university system that we serve, and see what you can find and see what you can do to, one, improve things, but also to make sure that we are doing everything we ought to do. Yesterday, I mentioned the multitude of wholly owned subsidiaries that are throughout the university system, and that's a place that still needs attention. During the time that I was chair and Don was vice chair, he and I started looking pretty deeply into the research that was being done by the university. And part of this was that we, the board, had regularly had presentations about how well we were doing research-wise, But then we started asking questions about, well, what were the results of all this? And how good was our research really? What was the depth of it and so forth? Tim, as the new president, picked up on this and, of course, brought in Hank, and things have really been turned around there. And not that we were doing, really poorly before, but we weren't doing what we ought to do. So asking those kind of questions and those sort of things really are important. I would endorse what Tim said. Asking yourself the question, is it as good as it can be, is really important. And it's important for the president and vice presidents. It's also important for all of us as curators to continually ask that question, because it can bring results. I've mentioned before how proud I am that I've been able to serve these years in one way or the other, or have this affiliation over these many years with the University of Missouri. Well, it all adds up to about 58 years from the time I started as a freshman in 1956 at Mizzou, and wrapping up this year as curators. And it's been a great experience. And somewhat of an example of that is Don had this chart up here before showing the trend in appropriations and funds coming from the legislature. I saw that when it popped up, and I leaned over and said something to Dave. He said, see that point at the top? That was the last year I chaired the Senate Appropriations Committee. And with that, I'll quit. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed working with all of you. Thank you, Don.
Well, given that remark, I think we all know what Wayne needs to do. Rather than retire, I think you need to run for the Senate again, Wayne, and get to be the chair of that committee again. That's our answer. Don.
Cindy, I believe you have a resolution to read.
Whereas Don Downing has served the people of Missouri with distinction as a member of the University of Missouri Board of Curators since April 2nd, 2009. And whereas during his term of service, Curator Downing served on the academic, student and external affairs, audit, compensation and human resources, governance, resources and planning, finance, and executive committees, and was chairman of the Finance Committee in 2011, 2012, and 2013. And whereas during Curator Downing's tenure as chairman of the Finance Committee, he worked diligently to educate himself and his fellow board members about the issues facing the university and led the efforts in investment and retirement plan management. And whereas Curator Downing was vice chairman of the Board of Curators in 2013 and elected chairman of the Board of Curators from January 1 to December 31, 2014. And whereas while serving as chairman of the board, Curator Downing was an avid proponent for alternative sources of revenue for the University of Missouri system. And whereas throughout his service, Curator Downing was a strong advocate for reasonable tuition practices and improving faculty salaries, and he served on the search committee to appoint the 23rd president of the University of Missouri system. And whereas, as an esteemed attorney, Curator Downing has received many awards and recognitions, including the Citation of Merit from the University of Missouri School of Law in 2011. And he is giving back by leading the 25 for 25 fundraising initiative designed to assist with scholarships and faculty support for the law school. And whereas Dean of the University of Missouri School of Law, Gary Myers, stated, "I have found Don to be a great source of guidance on the changing practice of law and on the future direction of the law school. I am grateful for his service on the Board of Curators and am proud to consider him a friend. And whereas, as a knowledgeable and enthusiastic emissary for the entire University of Missouri system, and with the desire to increase his knowledge of governance, he attended the Association of Governing Boards Annual Conference on Trusteeship and accepted the AGB's invitation to serve on their Council of Board Chairs. And whereas Curator Downing marched in the processional and helped officiate the inauguration of the 22nd Chancellor of the University of Missouri, Columbia. And whereas Curator Downing was crowned as the first Mizzou Homecoming King in 1977, he continued to support the homecoming tradition as a proud alumnus and a member of the Beta Theta Pi fraternity and participated in several homecoming parades while serving on the board. And whereas Curator Downing is a person of great ethical values who is always gracious and a true professional, his contributions to the board will have a lasting impact on the future of the University of Missouri system. And whereas Curator Downing was able to balance his law practice and his work on the board with the important role of husband to his wife Tracy and father to his 4 children. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Curators, on behalf of the students, faculty, staff, and alumni of the University of Missouri system, and on behalf of the citizens of the state of Missouri, does hereby adopt this resolution in sincere appreciation of the dedicated and devoted leadership of Don M. Downing. And also that his future relations with the University of Missouri system be formally recognized by bestowing the title of Curator Emeritus upon Don M. Downing. And be it further resolved that the Secretary of the Board of Curators cause this resolution to be spread upon the minutes of this meeting, and that a duly inscribed copy thereof be furnished to Don M. Downing.
Would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Cindy, call the roll.
Curator Bradley,
Yes.
Curator Cups,
Yes.
Curator Downing, Curator Good,
Aye.
Curator Henriksen,
Yes.
Curator Phillips,
Yes.
Curator Steelman.
Yes.
Okay, all votes in favor.
I've said enough. Okay, now maybe we can get back on time. Next item on our agenda is the good and welfare of the university. Does anyone have anything else they'd like to say about for the good and welfare of the university? Tracy?
I have one thing I'd like to say. At the October meeting, I requested that President Wolf involve the students more in conversations regarding Title IX and the implications. And I wanted to report that that has taken place, and we've had conference calls and are moving forward with more conference calls to engage students in this important conversation. So I wanted to thank you for your time and continued attention in this regard.
Any other comments or questions or any points for the good and welfare? Seeing none, we have a couple of action items to move to. The first of those is the election of the Board of Curators chairperson for next year. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I nominate Don Cups to be the chair of the board for next year.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Cindy, please call the roll.
Curator Bradley,
Yes.
Curator Cups,
Abstain.
Curator Downing,
Yes.
Curator Good,
Aye.
Curator Henriksen,
Yes.
Curator Phillips,
Yes.
Curator Steelman.
Yes.
Okay, all votes in favor.
Congratulations.
Mr. Chairman, if I might just add, all of these people who abstain for voting for themselves, that may give us an understanding of why they don't understand Jefferson City. Nobody ever abstains the chance of voting for yourself.
Next item on the agenda is the election of our vice chair for 2015. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to nominate Pamela Hugh Harrison Henriksen, for vice chairman.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Cindy, please call the roll.
Curator Bradley,
Yes?
Curator Cups,
Yes.
Curator Downing,
Yes.
Curator Good,
Aye.
Curator Henriksen,
Abstain.
Curator Phillips,
Yes.
Curator Steelman.
Yes.
Okay, all votes in favor.
On behalf of the University of Missouri System, I'd like to present this plaque to you in recognition of your service. Thank you.
Well, now I get to talk about the book again. I'd like to present this book to you as history. Let's see, the first person who did this was Chairman McHugh in actually it goes back further than that. It goes back into the 70s, I believe. So this is the History of the University of Missouri, published on its bicentennial, 1939. And it's customary for the outgoing chair to present it to the incoming chair. And it's also customary that a portion of a segment of that book be read. So let me read that right now. This is from the remarks of Frederick Arnold Middlebush, who was president of the University of Missouri in 1939. His words are, "The first principle is that there should never be any compromise in the quality of the university's personnel and its work. In spite of an ever-present and insistent pressure to do otherwise, the university should never expand its program at the expense of the high standard of quality, which means in practice beyond its assured degree of financial support. The University of Missouri, in common, especially with other state universities, is being urged constantly to enlarge its activities to include new fields. However meritorious such fields may be, they must always be evaluated on the basis of the effect such expansion would have on the quality of the already established program. If any task is worth doing at all by the university, it's worthy of the very best, nothing less. It is not the quantity, but the quality that counts in the end."
Thank you.
Now, I'm gonna say a few words. These are
If
yours.
you'll leave me my words, please. Thank you, Don. I want to start out by saying how much I've enjoyed working with the board members throughout the almost 4 years I've been on the board. And I'd like to especially thank the 3 board members whose terms are expiring, that they've provided a great deal of leadership for this board the last 6 years, all 3 serving as chairman of the board. The one thing that I respect about this board is that we respectively disagree at times, and we come together and make hard decisions. 4 years ago, or almost 4 years ago, when I went to my first curators meeting in Kansas City, I came home and told my wife, I said, one of the things that just struck me was how excited the faculty members were, the administration were, about the students, about teaching, about doing research. And I said, it just causes me to just bubble up and say, this is my university. I want to acknowledge now the professionalism and dedication of the president, the general officers, the faculty, and the staff at all of the institutions. The one thing that I was told I'm supposed to do, and I'm glad that I get to do this, is that by tradition, the incoming board chairman adopts a theme. And I want to start by thanking Steve Owens and President Wolf for their help in coming up with the theme. And the theme that I would like for the board to have this year is the year of the student, or to steal the term, a phrase from one of our chancellors, it's all about the students. And this coming year, I would like the board to challenge each institution about different issues that affect the students. Student and parent satisfaction with a college experience. Safety, which we're already working on. Retention. Why do some of our students leave? Graduation rates. Not just the 6-year graduation rate that all of the rating agencies want to talk about, but 4-year graduation rates. Because this affects the ability of middle-income parents to finance their kids' education. And most of all, what each institution can do to make our students successful. Between now and February, we'll work on this theme. And I would welcome your comments and suggestions, and I'm sure President Wolf will, because we will be talking a lot about this. Thank you very much, and Chairman Downing, it's back to you.
Thank you, incoming Chair Cups. Do we have any other business that we need to discuss in public session?
I think, Mr. Chairman, the new chairman should, about time to update that book, and it's 1939. I think that'd be a good task for the new board.
I'm sure the new chair will consider that in due course. With nothing else to discuss, do I have a motion to adjourn the public session?
So moved.
Second. Cindy?
Curator Bradley,
Yes.
Curator Cups,
Yes.
Curator Downing,
Yes.
Curator Good,
Aye.
Curator Henriksen,
Yes.
Curator Phillips,
Yes.
Curator Steelman.
Yes.
Okay, all votes in favor.
Public session is adjourned, and my last time to do that. Thank you.